Harry Potter hates Ohio!
You know, I loved the Harry Potter series. I practically grew up with it, as throughout 11 years from 2001 to 2012, we got 8 installments of the franchise. Obviously, instead of it being 7 to match the books, it was 8 because the last movie was cut into 2 parts, because they had to get a lot in there and they couldn't make it into a full-length feature film by itself. They had to split it into 2 parts. And that's arguably one of the best movie franchises in the, history. I would say that it's probably the first and only movie franchise that has more than 5 movies to its name, where every single one is beloved and no one really hates any of the movies, and critically they're all pretty good scored when it comes to, Rotten Tomatoes and all that kind of stuff. Even though I will say the 4th one is probably my worst at this point, but that's just because every time I turn on the TV and it's Harry Potter weekend, it's always the Goblet of Fire, I swear to God, and it's getting really, really annoying. Not that I have a problem with the movie, but I'm just starting to see it way too much. And I know the other movies get played a lot, but just the fact that the Goblet of Fire is on every time I turn to Harry Potter weekend, it's like, alright, someone's playing a joke on me. Someone's doing this intentionally, they know what's happening, and it gets annoying to me.
Big whoop, wanna fight about it?
After that ended, I kind of thought, alright, the Harry Potter stuff, it won't necessarily die off, but something's gonna come, and who knows if it'll be that cursed child story, and lo and behold, it was not. It was not the continuation from the Harry Potter characters that we've come to know and love. It was a prequel to what the original Harry Potter movies, whereas they were more focused on Harry Potter. But when we get to the Fantastic Beasts trilogy, it ends up more about Newt Scamander, Dumbledore, and the guy that was the Dark Lord before Voldemort, that being Grindelwald. And watching the movies throughout the trilogy, they just got progressively worse, and it's not that easy to do that. I mean, I guess with a trilogy, usually it's always the first one that's good, the second one where it starts to decline a bit, and by the third one you're just done with it. And I can say that's definitely where I was with this trilogy, as when I saw Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, it was okay. I mean, the critics liked it, and the fans liked it. You know, it did very well, which prompted a sequel, which they were planning already, and that one had the big ticket because at the end of the first movie, if you remember, we find out that this whole time Grindelwald, who was played by none other than Johnny Depp, was using the Polyjuice potion, sort of similar to what Barty Crouch Jr. did in the Goblet of Fire when he kind of kidnapped Mad-Eye Moody, took the Polyjuice potion to look like him to, I guess, go undercover for the Dark Lord and all that, and here we were getting Grindelwald, who was trying to get into the Ministry of Magic to take control in this case, but doing it undercover so there wasn't any suspicion. And with the second movie now, they had their big ticket actor. Johnny Depp was going to now be a main part of the franchises. He only popped up right at the end when he was Grindelwald, so he didn't really play all that big of a part in the first movie, but now that you have him as the character and the next movie is called The Crimes of Grindelwald, you knew you were going to have that attention set for the next installment, and by the second movie, it just became apparent Warner Brothers stopped trying. And I know that's a thing with Warner Brothers, no matter if they're doing Harry Potter or DC or whatever, they always seem to, make good first movies, but then when it comes to making a sequel, they always lack the expertise to make something better and more different than the first movie, as it follows Newt Scamander, who's now trying to get to Dumbledore because they're gotta go fight Grindelwald and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know, to me that one just ended up being more boring than the first movie. I mean, the first movie had the characters come in, they were very, very well done, and you had the creatures to go along with it, but by the second movie, all the characters and their backstories just kind of seemed dried out. And with Dumbledore, I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about young Dumbledore. It just didn't seem like it was him, and it was, I don't know, it was just a drag to get through.
You are the imposter!
And then the critics who liked the first movie gave this one a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes and said, uh-oh, here's where the downfall begins. The third movie's supposed to be like the one that concludes it all, and yet the sequel was so damn bad that we're not even sure if the third movie will be worth watching. And then they kind of put themselves in a pickle, Warner Brothers did, because, well, the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing happened, and Johnny Depp obviously was scheduled to reprise his role again as Grindelwald in the upcoming third movie, The Secrets of Dumbledore. And he was fired after the allegations against him with Amber Heard had come out, and he was replaced by Mads Mikkelsen, who is now going to take the role of Grindelwald.
You are the imposter!
And of course that made a lot of people angry, and rightfully so, because Warner Brothers just seemed to fire Johnny Depp real quick without looking into anything or waiting till evidence came out. And now it turns out that a lot of the stuff Amber Heard said was false about Johnny Depp, and that Johnny Depp was the victim in this situation, making Warner Brothers kind of look not good with just canning Johnny Depp that quickly. It was like, okay, now you probably feel bad for your decision, but they had to get the movie out there. It was filmed, it was done, and from what I heard, it didn't do very well at the box office. Although the critics liked this one more than the second movie, it still only garnered a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes, which, last I checked, is not a certified fresh rating for the Rotten Tomatoes website and the critics. So this one was another one that was just really panned and not a lot of people enjoyed, even though the fans would say they enjoyed it. As you look at the fan score, way up there. You know, let's be honest with ourselves, it wasn't that thrilling conclusion we were all hoping for. Let's just take the whole Johnny Depp thing out of the picture and not judge it off of that. But we'll just go on and say that when you thought about the thrilling conclusion, the fight between Dumbledore and Grindelwald, you're just sitting there going, yeah, I don't know, that just, I felt like there was more to come, and yet here we are left with this stale, dry ending, and somehow the character development got even worse than it did in the second movie, and it just brought everything down. And that led me to realize this is probably the worst trilogy I think I've seen in years. And don't get me wrong, there's been some bad trilogies to come out in my lifetime, but like this one, at least with other trilogies, there's at least one movie in the trilogy that I can go back and watch non-stop. You know, the other two movies I might not like going back to, but at least there's always one. But with the Fantastic Beasts trilogy, even though I thought the first one was fine in its own way, these aren't movies that I want to go back and sit down and watch. And when you talk about the Harry Potter movies and all 8 of them being so, you know, praised and whatnot, it just, you look at how far Harry Potter, the franchise, fell because Warner Brothers just kept trying to milk it and milk it. And I understand that when Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them came out that a trilogy was planned, but it seemed like Warner Brothers just knew that money was going to come in, so after the first movie, which we made tolerable, we don't necessarily have to do anything good to continue the path of these Harry Potter movies being certified fresh. As to this day, Crimes of Grindelwald and The Secrets of Dumbledore are the only 2 Harry Potter movies that are not certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and rightfully so. They just fall flat on their face. They leave you with high expectation only to really get nothing. Because even after the first movie was okay, I said, well, this gives an opportunity for the sequel to be even better. This can be one of those rare occasions where the first movie starts slow, but by the second movie you're like, yes, I like this. It's the same thing in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. Batman Begins is a good movie, but it starts too slow for my liking, but then when you get to The Dark Knight, it's a big step up, where you're like, wow, like, you forget how good the first movie is because the second movie, the sequel, is so great, and very rarely does that happen in cinema, where the second movie is better than the sequel. But with the way Fantastic Beasts was, that's kind of how I thought it was going to be. You know, okay, I enjoyed the first movie, but, you know, it needs to pick it up a little bit, and maybe the second movie would do that, and it just became more of a slogfest for me, and that's when I knew that by the time we got to this third movie, I just wouldn't have cared that much. I've seen none of these movies in theaters because I was really worried about the first one, so I was like, I'll wait for it to come on streaming and DVD before I go see it. And by the time the second one was out, I was just like, I don't even know if I want to see this because, well, I don't know. It made me lose love for the Harry Potter franchise. Like, I get it. It's not the fact that these movies have nothing to do with Harry Potter. I understand they're not supposed to. But this could have been a great prequel trilogy to see how everything started and came to be now that Grindelwald is out of the picture and it's soon to be Lord Voldemort, you know, all that kind of stuff. But again, they just kind of half-assed this story and continue to make these movies that didn't hold up or didn't meet these expectations, And they want the fans and the critics to be happy about that, because it's like, oh, well, you know, these are Harry Potter movies, you're not going to get many of these anymore, especially with the original cast, so just eat it up, just give us the money. And that's where I'm just like, alright, now it's a little too much, and I can confidently say to myself that the Fantastic Beasts trilogy is the worst trilogy in a while, where none of these movies are really ones to come back to in any way. And again, sure, they have their good moments, but the flaws are just too much to look past. And again, the character development, each movie just, it started here after Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, but by the time you get to the third movie, the character development's down here. It's like, they don't really stay stagnant, they just somehow get worse with the character development, except for Newt Scamander's friend, the muggle friend who ends up getting magical powers in the end. That guy was pretty cool, and I think his story was up there, but the others, I don't know. I really don't know. There just wasn't enough there to continue their story and growing it a little bit more. Like, it just, like, they didn't even try, and they didn't really do the books all that much justice.
You surprise me to how shit you are. Oh, thank you.
Whereas the original Harry Potter movies did the books justice, and they were able to just come out with 3 or 4 different directors for those Harry Potter movies. Chris Columbus did the first 2. They had a different director for the 3rd and 4th movie, and the 5th through the 8th movie were directed by the same guy. So through 4 different directors, where the first 2 movies kind of started out a little bit more sparklier, and by the time you got to the 3rd, got a little bit more darker. We're still able to keep fans' engagement, but this movie, same director all 3 movies, a little bit of a scandal in between, and just a decrease in movie production, movie quality with each release. It's one of those things where we're going to look back in history and go, man, they really tried to milk Harry Potter for all of its money, didn't they? Like, this isn't a Harry Potter story, but it's Harry Potter involved, and it was just not fun, not enjoyable, and it didn't get me excited for anything Harry Potter, at least now. I mean, if they do make a Cursed Child movie where the original actors that we know and love, like Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Tom Felton, and Emma Watson come back, sure, I will proudly tune into that to see how that story continues. But with the Fantastic Beasts, I just don't care. And I really don't see them continuing on with this story, or even going into the Tom Riddle story. I have a feeling that's going to be the next thing they do, but God, I hope not, because we got that throughout the whole entire Harry Potter series. It's like people clamoring for that Darth Vader series, but Star Wars fans are like, did you not know that if you watch episodes 1 through 6, and even shows like Obi-Wan Kenobi and whatnot, you get the Darth Vader story? Like, it's all there. We don't need a show or a movie about Darth Vader, because we got that throughout a series of stuff. It's just like, we don't need that with Tom Riddle. We've seen it with our own eyes, what happened going from Tom Riddle to Voldemort. So if they just continue to milk Harry Potter for their money and do that, well, that's when I know that I'm just going to officially be done with the franchise. But until then, at least we have the original 8 movies to keep us occupied and to make us go, man, I really love that. Like, at least you have those to entertain you after this horrific trilogy that is Fantastic Beasts. But that's just my thoughts on the Fantastic Beasts trilogy. You can tell me in the comments below, what do you think overall? And until then, stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and I will catch you all in the next one.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I don't give a fuck.